Hello, welcome to episode 26, we think, of the Realtors. I'm David Blair. He's Trevin Perez. Trevin, how's it going?
It's going well, man. It's fantastic. It's a Thursday. It's
It
May
is.
1st. We're
Yes,
almost
yes.
halfway through the year, man.
Halfway,
Wait,
halfway
wait, what
there.
is that you're wearing? What is that new shirt you're wearing?
Oh, my new Redfin gear. Yeah. We made that announcement last week. I
Yeah.
officially made the change. I'm at my almost my 30-day mark with the company. So very interesting. A little bit of a learning curve because of the technology, but so far I'm very pleased with the um, uh, with the move. I think it's good. I see a lot of things that are going to come up here within the next year with the acquisition that Redfin has with Rocket Mortgage, with Mr. Cooper Title. I think it's only going to increase opportunities. And I've had a really good month with opportunities. So met a lot of new buyers, working with some new sellers. So far, out of 10, I'd give it a 9.
A 9. That's a big rating.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you sticking by that answer? Is that your final choice?
That's my final answer. I don't need to phone a friend.
Are you
Nothing like
sure?
that. It's good. It's good. What's happening with you personally? Let's talk about some personal stuff.
Personal stuff. Oh, great. Where are we going?
So I shared with you. I had a couple closings yesterday. Um, Closing gifts are always. We've talked about this a little bit before. You're a closing gift guy. Do you bring your customers closing gifts?
That's true. That's true. I like doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
maybe it's not on closing day because I like to meet up with them afterwards. But
Sure.
that's
Sure.
right. You're not a big closing gift guy.
I mean, I'm not, and I tell myself before the closing, I'm like, I did my job, and I did it in my opinion, at a very high level. So why do I have to reward, the customer with a gift, so to speak? I get it. It's, a housewarming gift, that sort of thing. Somewhere, along the way, a realtor felt the need to bring gifts to closing, and then they got us, the rest of us, just trapped into this pattern we can't get out of bringing a closing gift. But
Exactly.
if you don't bring a closing gift and your customer does, then you feel like a real ass. So that's the problem. That's the trade-off.
That's
So,
true. And did that happen to you
and
yesterday?
it did. Well, so we had two closings. We had a closing on the property they were selling yesterday, and they brought me two wonderful gifts. As some people know, I do like to drink brown liquor. I like whiskey. I like bourbon. So they bought me gifted me two really nice bottles of bourbon. So I was really appreciative of that. I did return the favor
I'm-
the day after, and brought them some equally nice gifts. Not the bottle of bourbon, but the did some really nice coasters that were made out of like an oak wooden barrel, that they actually distilled the whiskey in, which is kind of cool. I think they like that. Luxardo cherries. I am a snob when it comes to cherries. If you throw a red maraschino cherry in my drink, I will throw that drink in your face, because I don't like those, and I think it affects the overall taste or quality of my old fashioned.
right.
Yeah, it was good times. We toasted afterwards, and um, I think they're definitely going to be friends, for a long time. So we really seemed to kind of vibe, and we talked about it. It was almost about an 8 month process. They came to me like maybe July, August of last year when we started this. So we had to sell their existing home. They bought a new home. They ended up selling the existing home to a family member, which I facilitated that for them as well. So everybody's happy. I think everything worked out well, and that's really what you want at the end of the day. You want a transaction to where everybody feels good about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember that transaction because, correct me if I'm wrong, your listing seller knew the buyer, right? There was the sister.
Their sister, yeah, it was her sister. They were related.
That's right. That's right. I
Yeah,
remember that. And yeah, it gets tricky on
yeah,
some of the details of the negotiation,
yeah, yeah,
compensation, all that fun
hmm
stuff.
yeah, yeah. But
And
no, it was a smooth transaction. And like I said, everyone was happy, so it worked out. It worked out well. So
good.
what about you? How's business?
Business is booming. I'm prospecting. I'm in prospect mode. 100% is all about prospecting. So for me, my. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't say that. Say it that way. I'm working on a closing that should be coming up in the next few weeks, and it was a referral, and got busy with that. Really, you take for granted the smaller single wins,
Hmm.
unless it's like a grand slam where you get, all three guys on base,
Yeah.
going out the park with a home run, a
Hmm.
judge, a judge homer from the
Hmm.
Yankees. Unless it's
Hmm.
like a big hit like that, you kind of
Yeah.
take for granted the small wins. So I will recant how I started that and say, besides prospecting, working on a buyer closing, and then I'm also working on a couple of new listings that are in prep to hit the market. Um, you know, I'm at Compass, and we have this thing that's causing a lot of buzz in the industry about private exclusives and in broker
Hmm.
networks, and it's like, oh my gosh, too much conversation. But needless
Yeah.
to say, I have a few clients that are in that environment, and it's a good time because they're not ready to hit the MLS right away. So we're working
Yeah.
on getting the house ready. We're working on, hey, if you want top dollar, you might have to replace carpets. You might have to paint, right? Like
Sure.
let's have these hard decisions. And I
Hmm.
constantly bring them right back to the comps and say, look, you tell me if a four-bedroom is selling at this price and you have a three and you want a similar price, are you
Hmm.
going to buy it? No, right? So I'm finding that in a lot of different neighborhoods, we're butting up against new construction, and it's making it really difficult for the resale. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Excuse me. In addition to that, is just prospecting. A
Yeah.
lot of prospecting, farming, just trying to
Hmm.
be strategic and different.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So
let's face it. I mean, I assume in your market, we're fully in like a buyer market right now, right? Like, it's no longer sellers in great demand. We have a healthy supply of inventory too.
yeah, it feels like it. We had a situation the other day. I had a customer that got dropped into my schedule to go see a property, and the listing agent. It took me back to 2020. The listing agent texted me and said, "Hey, I see where you scheduled the showing. We actually are doing a highest and best. You're showing schedule for 6. We're actually doing a highest and best, but we need all offers by 4 o'clock." And so I called and I said, do you have multiple offers? And it was a property that I think was intentionally underpriced, to kind of build some momentum. And they had 12 offers on that property. So again, it was an area where I think it was probably, I never saw the property, so I don't know what the condition was, but they definitely priced it, much lower. So that just tells me that, buyers are still out there, but they're just looking. They've got a lot more to choose from right now, and they can be a little more selective. That was a case to where it was a property that was outside of the norm of what we're seeing, and it was just priced really below what the market value was in that area. So what I'm seeing is that properties that are in good condition, priced well, um, you know, are selling, and that's all the time, though, isn't it? I mean, regardless of what the market is, that's the story over and over again. Those are the homes that sell. So if you're a seller out there, you've got to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward with regard to the condition of the property. And if not the condition, if you can't do work on the condition, then you got to price it right. And if you do, it'll sell within a reasonable time. But you can't. This is not the market to test and to overprice. in my opinion. I mean, I think those properties that are like that are really just sitting out there. So when I see a property that's on the market for, what's your normal market time in your area? How many days on market are you seeing?
Man, some areas, if they're over 120 days, they're
Yeah.
overpriced.
Yeah.
I'm
So that's
seeing 60
crossed.
to 90 days is ideal.
Yeah, so that's crossed the threshold. So I think a couple stats that I've kind of gone by over years say that once you pass over that 90 day, 120 day mark, you're definitely into a buyer's market. And I think that's where we're at. So the tables have turned, quite a bit. That's not to say that you can't, sell the property within a reasonable time period and sell at a profit. You just probably can't do that if you bought the property last year. And I think, what's happened within the last, 5 years is that, we've gotten a little spoiled, on the selling side in that you just assumed, okay, well, I bought the property last year for 250,000. So I've owned it for a year. I can sell it for 325. That's probably not the case anymore, unless you just bought the property at a really low value to begin with. I don't see that being the case, but
Yeah, man.
sales.
No, go ahead, finish.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the sales, still happen all the time for the usual reasons. Death, divorce, relocation, all of those things, still occur, and real estate still gets transferred. But price is key.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that one of the other things I'm noticing a lot of lately is I'm getting a lot of new buyers that I'm going through the pre approval process. Here's the process of buying a home, and I'm noticing just, as a byproduct of the interest rates being still on the high side, 6-ish range. I mean, it's good that buyers are accepting that this is the normal that we're in today. We're not going to see another 2-3% unless
Hmm.
some crisis outside of the current political crisis and tariff crisis we're dealing with
Hmm.
happen. But a lot of my buyers are kind of going through that process of, okay, let's after our pre-approval, instead of being ready to buy, it's all right. Now let's come up with a game plan: 3 to 6 months, 9 months. Let's get
Yeah.
yourself ready because they're
Hmm.
not ready today to buy. And I'm noticing
Yeah.
I've had at least a handful of buyers like that
Hmm.
that's come across my desk. Where it's more of that education and setting them up for a roadmap. For success. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so I'm, with the switch, so some of the growing pains that I'm having right now with the new company is that over my career, the majority of customers that I've worked with are on the selling side. Redfin right now, I've had some selling opportunities, but the majority of the opportunities that come in are on the buy side, and they're set up for efficiency where you're in front of your computer, you can click a button and you can go see a property as soon as one of the agents is available. The challenge with that is that screening process is not there a lot of times. So there's not a required pre-approval or things like that. So you really have to kind of get in front of that situation pretty quickly, and establish some rapport at that first showing to where you're asking all those questions, because otherwise, I have a situation, showed a homeowner a couple of homes. They found one they were really interested in, wanted to move forward. Come to find out they can't qualify. They talked to the mortgage company, and they're going to be sidelined for a little while. Now they can do some work on their credit situation and things like that, and get back in the game soon. And that's the hope for them. But right now they can't. And you and I both know, traditionally in our industry, that's what comes first, is that, okay, hey, you get your pre-approval, then you go home shopping. But I'm seeing a little bit of a change with that. I don't know if that's maybe because people are, you know still concerned about the usual worries of, well, I don't want credit pull, that kind of thing. But that's in my opinion some of the negatives of making the process so easy to go out and take a look at a property, because it's not just from the agent standpoint, but from the buyer side. I'd hate to go out and find a property that I really wanted to make an offer on, and then find out that I couldn't qualify for it. So
Right.
again, that's the reason for that pre-approval process. So, yeah, just have to, kind of, adjust the toolkit, if you would. Make sure that that's a conversation that's had very quickly early in the process to get that taken care of, so we're not out wasting time, and the buyers aren't wasting their time either.
Yeah, man, it's that it always takes me back to the idea of like a car salesman. When
Hmm.
you go to the dealership, they let you fall in love with the car,
Sure.
and then at that, and as a sales guy, you're falling in love too, hoping okay, there's a sale, but then of course
Hmm.
they run into the scenario where they don't get approved. And
Yeah.
I used to drive Audis a lot for
Hmm.
many years. I was always an Audi fan, and I know the sales guys were like typically 98% of all people that walk through here know their credit is good enough to be approved. So it's always an easier sale than maybe going to a traditional
Hmm.
dealership like a Toyota, Honda, or any of the
Sure.
above
Yeah.
normal names. And I just thought that was fascinating.
Hmm.
That you're going to walk into these places thinking you're going to buy something, and you didn't know your credit wasn't great. Like, how do you
Yeah.
not know that?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
And the same should go
Exactly
for a
right.
house. Like, you should know you
Hmm.
can't afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because from
Well, I
our
think.
offer days, I have a few clients who still want to sell. I keep in touch with, and I'm like, so what do you pay now? And they tell me, oh, like 1,500, and I'm hearing crickets, and
Hmm.
they're like, yeah, we want to go to a new construction build. I was like, like
Yeah.
what? New
Yeah.
construction? Okay.
Hmm.
I'll just leave that out there in the universe. Like anybody
Hmm.
watching this knows or should know, there's no way if you're paying typically about $1,500 a month, are you
Yeah.
going to be able to afford a 400K house?
Sure.
If that's your
Yeah.
max number, you have to
Hmm.
go up. You probably got to go up 2 to 3x minimum.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I had another scenario where, and again, and I'm an experienced agent. I call myself an experienced agent. Maybe I'm just an old agent, but the buyer went out and took a look at the property, and this was a huge move up for them. They were looking at a home, or they lived in a home that was probably priced around 350, 375 is what the sales price would be on that property, and they were looking at a property that was priced at 850. So a pretty significant move up in the market, and we started working with their pre-approval. And somewhere in that process, they were very responsive. They said, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to try to, really like to try to make this work if the numbers work in our favor. And then they disappeared. And we all know that when you don't hear anything, something's going on, even though you don't hear anything. And
true.
I finally, reached out several times via text, and finally got an email back. And it just said, hey, David, really sorry, hate to do this, but we talked to another company, lender, and they have a program that this is who we bank with, and they feel that they could get this mortgage done for us, but they require that we use their real estate professionals to do that. And I told them, I said, I'm actually very familiar with that program, and it was the Navy Federal program, which I worked for 20 plus years, with my days of ERA. I said, I'm actually very familiar with that program. And I said, and the program is not, the incentive is not tied to the mortgage. It's tied to the fact of whether a brokerage is going to pay referral fees, because rebates and things like that you get back are going to come from those referral fees that are generated from the commissions. I said, so it really doesn't have anything to do with the mortgage company. I said, you're welcome to use that mortgage company and use whatever agent you want, as long as that agent is willing to contribute to that. So wasn't able to, I guess, provide a convincing argument for a switch. And I get it, a lot of times if you're already comfortable, you're dealing with your own bank. It's an uphill climb, and you only know me from that one visit of the tour of that home. And as fantastic as I am, which most of us know that, of course, it's still pretty challenging, to convert that. So that's a little of what the new opportunities were. I still give them a 9, still hanging in there with that 9 rating, but there's
Come
definitely
on.
there's definitely some room for improvement. I do like I really like a lot of things about the system that I think are gonna help in the future. But we'll see what we'll see what the rest of the market year looks like. It's really tough to believe. I mean, that we're almost at the mid year point already,
Very.
and I don't know. Tell me about your. Normally this is a spring rush. This is a time that I mean, but spring's in March. I mean, we're in May now, so we're fastly approaching. When we get into next month in my area, and I'm sure in yours as well. We're going to have graduations and schools wrapping up and travel and things like that. We're going to have a whole nother set of challenges to deal with, of attention that's being diverted away from buying and selling, and you're dealing with life. You're dealing with your kids. You're dealing with travel. Are you seeing the same thing in your area?
No, absolutely, and I think that's why when you asked me about what I'm up to, I said prospecting because
Hmm.
if in our world you have to have a huge pipeline of business lined up back to back, and most of us, will pause some of that traditional prospecting to do other things, travel, work the transactions we got. And so with summer right around the corner, I'm feeling that rush of, okay, we got to put our foot down on the pedal with prospecting. And one of the things I did, talk about systems that I really like a lot with my current broker, is the CRM. I'm doing some farming activity, and not the traditional farming with postcards and all of that. Like it feels old and it's quite expensive, to try to do it right. You got to do it extensively for a long
Hmm.
period of time. But what I'm doing is, I'm combing my neighborhood, grabbing all of the homeowners here within a few mile radius and putting them in so that the system can alert me to who fits the criteria of a high to medium propensity to sell their home. I don't know
Okay.
how the technology does it today. It's pretty fascinating with AI and all of the software that is available to us today,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
they could come up with these features of why, maybe it's like divorce, or maybe it's high equity, or who knows, what they know about all of us, because nothing is
Yeah.
private anymore. But they can tell that you're likely to sell. And so from there I would go and probably do a song, do a drop by,
Hmm.
and bring a
Sure.
gift or bring a kid or something to introduce myself at that
Hmm.
point,
Hmm.
hoping to be at the right time and the right place, to
Yeah.
talk about your plans on selling your home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
systems, yeah, crazy.
I spoke with a buyer earlier this morning, and I was asking them if they were on our site, and they were looking, and they said that they were referring to another site like a Realtor.com. And they said, we've just kind of Realtor.com has kind of been our go-to over the years, so we're using that to view most of our homes. Our system and a lot of new systems, I know your company is this way as well, has the AI and the ability to kind of learn from your search, which actually helps because what that ends up doing is the more homes you search, it starts to pick up on your patterns and then starts to send you back information on properties that you might not have seen that match that criteria. So we just try to get that point across as well as using some of those using some of those in-house features so that we can kind of fine tune that search. And I have to say this on a personal note. We kind of talked about it in a minute. You know, the we talked about kids and we talked about the summer, and things like that. And we all know that kids can do things that are a little maddening, whether they're teenagers, whether it's a boy, girl, whatever the case is. But completely off topic with real estate. What are your thoughts on this kid, this 20 I say kid, this 21-year-old that decided to prank call, Shador Sanders during the draft and make a bad moment for him worse, that ended up costing like $350,000 in fines. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, this was a crazy weekend just with the draft and all of that excitement. But yeah, that particular situation was nuts. You know, let's face it, right? Dad's phone should have had a lock on it,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
password or
Hmm.
facial recognition. Like, there's no reason for
Hmm.
my kids to have any knowledge of those phone numbers for the
Right.
draft. That was weird. But then also too, for them to do that, I mean, that's just so unfair. That's not kind. I mean,
Yeah.
it's quite mean.
Hmm.
I feel like that generation, teenagers, you have them, I have them. They're just oblivious to how long and powerful in a negative way social
Yeah.
media is. Like, that stuff is going to live on forever, and this kid is going to be 30 years old in 10 years, and we'll have to answer for that. That might
Yeah.
come up like, yeah, it was stupid, it was funny, but it was wrong. Dad deserved to get fined. I mean, we talked about it. I don't know, how would I punish my son for that? I don't know. What would you do?
I'm knocking that kid out live on Facebook feed. I mean, he wants that kind of attention. I'll give it to you. I'll give you all
Oh,
that attention, and right there on social media, because that's the other part to it as well. Is it's we all have pulled some kind of prank on somebody before, and it's kind of funny if it's a friend, somebody, one of your buddies or something like that. But this is, Shador Sanders is a complete stranger to this kid. This kid has no connection to him other than his dad being in the NFL. And it's just kind of mean spirited, to do that. But to take it to another level is he recorded it and actually sent it out, because and that tells me that you wanted more from that than to just get a laugh from your friends. You wanted the attention, you wanted the thumbs up, you wanted the like on Instagram, and to be known as this legend of a prankster. And you probably were for a little bit, but the recourses of that, and what it did to your family. I mean, imagine if his the NFL came in and fined his employer 250,000, which they entrusted this information to him, to the D coordinator. So I get it, why they have to be fined as well. But what if he lost his job? I mean, legitimately, what if he got fired? What if the Falcons said, it's just careless. We don't need that look. Um, your defense sucked last year. You're out. You're gone. I mean, what would that kid think? What would he do?
yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It is sad. Yeah, I just think that generation is oblivious to repercussions. Just all these kids have gold spoons in their mouths. Like, you know, they grew up in the era of, like, you can't bully. But you and I grew up in, what? You want to get knocked in your face? And then we go home to our parents, and our parents said, "Did you fight back?
Yeah,
No? Okay, go back tomorrow. I'm going to
yeah,
be there and I'm going to watch you fight back." Like, that
yeah,
was okay.
yeah. Exactly.
Jeez, like, come on, you know?
So,
It's like,
so
no, today we're going to school, and we have to have a conversation because my little Johnny called your Johnny a bad
mhm,
name. So we
mhm,
have to say sorry. Like, what?
yeah. I mean, I get it. There's that, there's definitely a different, it's definitely it's definitely a different society, with young kids now. I was at an event this past week. I'm a board member with one of the YMCA's, and they had one of their events for kids. It was called Healthy Kids Day, and it's a promotion that the Y puts on for kids to come out, get involved in reading activities, that sort of thing. And there was a volunteer that was there that was working with me, and he was about 17 years old, tall kid. So I'm trying to make conversation, as we kind of wait for people to get registered for the event. And I can tell he's pretty tall. And I said, what's your sport? You play basketball? I said, no, that's an assumption. He said, yeah. And So we started talking about that, and I told him, I said, he goes, "You ever play?" And I said, "No." I was like, I'll tell you my one basketball story. I said, when I was in about seventh grade, I said, me and a buddy of mine, a guy named Vic, those were my good friends. When I grew up, I said, decided that we wanted to play basketball. We thought we were good. We really knew we were terrible, and we decided that we could try out for the team. And we went and talked to the coach, and the coach did like
Yeah.
a once over. It's like, you boys ain't playing. You're not. You're not. He didn't even let us try out. I mean, so he was, and it wasn't in a mean way. And I mean, I kind of joke about it now, laugh. And I told this kid that story, and he was just stone faced. He was dumbfounded. You could just tell that if someone had said that to him, he would just been crushed. He would have been through years of therapy after that. And to me, it's just, you just kind of laugh it off, because that's just kind of one of those things that happen. But
Yeah.
it's a different society, and I hate always saying that, because then you sound like the old man shaking his fist, "Get off my lawn," you know.
But come on, man. We're in a society of participation awards.
Yeah, true, true.
Like,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the difference. I'm like, I tell my kids that, I'm like, you know, you can be a little soft. You're softer than what you think. I know you listen to rap music and you think you're hard because of all these lyrics. I said, but you're really soft. So
Listen, I tease my son because he knows the rap songs and he
mhm.
likes all the hard ones. I don't like
Sure.
that. I'm like, come
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
man. You're like
yeah.
a suburb gangster.
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
Like,
what you
what are you
do
doing?
is you get them in the car, and then you drop them off in that neighborhood that they hear songs about, and say, "Go ahead, see what you got. See how tough you
Seriously.
are."
Seriously. Oh my God. That's the scary idea right there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't think they're built to
No.
deal with any of that.
No.
But it makes things, it makes things interesting. My kids ask me a lot of times about, I don't know, how involved do your kids get into what you do. I think a lot of kids now don't, you know it's weird, because as much as they know, they don't know. And I'll tell them, we do the standard, "Hey, how was your day today?" "It was good." "What'd you do?" "Well, we did this in school." Usually I get the standard, "School was boring. This teacher was annoying. This was annoying. That, we had to do this assignment. It was annoying." They're like, "What did you do?" And I'll actually explain in some detail of what I do, because I want to give them some kind of context as to, you know, what it is that I do, or that we do. Do you share any of your real estate adventures with the kids?
I do. I do. I'll hear the same thing. Their
Yeah.
days are boring. They did nothing,
Hmm.
and I'll share stories. And I get like the glaze over with their eyes. And I just feel like they're somewhere else daydreaming as I talk to
Yeah.
them. But I always say, like, the one exciting idea I have from my perspective, and I don't know if you've considered this with your kids, is I would love the idea that 5 years, 10 years from now, they're like, "Hey, Dad, we want to jump in this with you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
let's partner up. Like, come stand on my shoulders. Let's leverage what I've already put together,
Hmm.
and build from there." Like, that would be super cool.
Yeah.
You know, I think my son is a little bit more receptive to it. My daughter is like, whatever. But I
Hmm.
say to them, listen, get through college, see
Yeah.
what life is like. Let's see
Sure.
how you feel about that 9 to 5 job, right?
Yeah.
And then come talk to me about what I do and see what you think, right? Um, I love when I see guys and girls straight out of college or even before college talk about real estate, because
Hmm.
I feel like it's such a gangster move, man.
Hmm.
This is a tough business that a lot of people don't succeed in. So even if you can be a whale in this business, or someone who at least is, making enough money to pay all their bills. I salute
Hmm.
them, because it,
Hmm.
it really is a mind game to this business.
Yeah. Yeah. I told my stepson, I said, we're talking, and he's going through, he'll be a senior this upcoming year. And so he's looking at looking at some different opportunities. Wants to play football at some level. Hopefully he gets the opportunity to do that. So, I'm telling him, I said, right now, I said, let me compare it to my job. I said, right now you're in sales basically. I said, so if you're wanting these coaches to recruit you, or to look at you for their program, I said, you need to sell yourself. And I said, and right now, so far, you're not a great salesman. So I said, so you gotta work on that. You gotta stay in front of people. You gotta stay relevant. So hopefully these things. I mean, there's a lot of things that in real estate, I think that can teach really good life lessons to younger kids, just because they're you know. And I'm not just saying this. I know people are going to look and say, "Oh, poor realtors! You make all this money for doing nothing." We work for every penny of it out there, and if you've been involved in any transaction with a professional, then you understand that. You understand what goes into it. I mean, because we work hard at what we do, and I think that's what's kind of lacking. What I see is some of that work ethic, to where you just got to go out. Some days you just got to go out and you got to outwork the other guy. That's what you have to do. You have to go out and just say, I'm going to do this at this level. You're here, I'm here, and that's where you're going to be successful at. So there's a lot of there's a lot of things that I do share with them about the real estate world, because it's not easy. One of the things I hear, I don't know if you ever hear this. I always think it's kind of funny. Is I hear from my stepdaughter. I hear it's not fair. I hear that a lot. That something at school or something with sports or whatever. Well, that's not fair. That's not fair. And that you sound like the typical old guy, and you say, what? Life's not fair. That's what you usually throw out there, is that, well, life's not fair. And it's not. Life's not fair in real estate. It's
No,
not.
no, it isn't.
It's not fair. It's not fair to go out and show a property and then find out that, oh, well, we're going to use another company, to do that. And when you've done most of the work, you've done a market analysis on their property, you've showed the other property, and now another company gets to kind of slide in and take over that process. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
what are you going
That's
to
the life we chose, right? That's the business we're in.
do?
And we get these kids off to college and off of our dime, hopefully, so they can be self sufficient. Fingers crossed.
At what point do you think you're now, I know how my parents were. My mom was like, once you have a job and you're not beyond this household, it's on you. It's really on you. What's those are your bills now. You take care of that. And she was a single mom, so I mean, she had limited funds, so it wasn't the same. And my wife and I, we kind of talk, and things were a little bit different in her household, to where her parents assisted her, with things later on, college and after that. What was yours? What was your situation?
My mom was single as well, and I grew up, I think, in a similar fashion where I was kind of on my own. I think
Mhm.
my mom would help and pitch in sometimes, throughout my adulthood, especially as I stayed in New York City,
Mhm.
uh, not far from her.
Yeah.
But once I left the state and was, truly out from the nest,
Hmm.
out of sight, out of mind, right? And she's like, I told you to stay, so now you're on your own, figure it out. Nobody told you to leave. So yeah, it was pretty much the same. But again, right, we got the bubblegum
Yeah.
soft generation that we're raising today. And
Tough
it's
Trevin walking the streets of New York. What's my name?
that's right. Can you imagine being a realtor out there, man? Like, what?
That's
You're not
tough.
gonna buy a house with me? You crazy? Turn my hat to the back, like, let's go.
That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
Well, that's all. That's all. What else you got? You got anything else for us today?
Nah, I think that this is a good episode, good week, and I think that we should just remind everybody, check us out. We on all of our social channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, Twitch. We should do a live on Twitch, man. Yo,
Yeah.
Twitch is a new channel we should check out. I don't think there are any realtors on there. And we just go live and
Yeah.
record. It's probably going to be the same scenario as our platform today.
Yeah. Let's do it.
And we'll get sponsors, or maybe Redfin or Compass will sponsor us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we can play video games on there. We can talk sports. We can do it all. So that's it, audience. Give us some comments. What do you think about realtors using Twitch as a new platform that this industry has not explored?
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, that's all I've got for today. Again, thanks for tuning in. I hope we provided some entertainment for your day. Continue to subscribe and like our content, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Have a great day.